All right, everybody. So today, first off, I want to open the floor to all of you. Anybody encounter anything? Anybody have any challenges? Anybody have anything that the rest of the group might benefit from asking a question, outlining a scenario, anything along those lines? Floor is yours. You go. No? Or just not willing to confess? Okay, barring anybody, anything going on, I will go ahead and launch into this. So in what I wanted to talk about today, it may risk repeating for some of you because it's been a while since we've talked about it, but there have been a couple of situations that have happened in the last week or so that I thought this is applicable and it needs to be talked about again amongst all of us. Okay, and the topic today is on a backup offer. All right, and this is important, one, for you as a listing agent, but also very important for you as if you are representing buyers, because this is a tool in your tool bag that you need to be very, very familiar with and that you need to use at the maximum amount possible. Okay, I can tell you that in terms of differentiating your value from those of your peers and your co-op agents that are on the other side of transactions, this is what separates the proverbial men from the boys. Okay, is the ability to do a backup offer is huge to separating you and providing a value added for you as an agent. And it's something that you should articulate not only with your clients, but co-op agents along the boards. I can tell you right now that, and this is a script that I use all the time, and you can use it too after you've gotten to the point where you're comfortable saying these things. But I can tell you right now, about a half a dozen people are sitting in their brand new homes today because we took the time, energy, and effort to do a backup offer for them. Okay, including my very own mother and father are sitting in their new home in Ball Ground, Georgia today, right now, at this very minute, because we did a backup offer. All right. And that backup offer ended up becoming the full blown, no kidding offer. And that's happened to me no less than a half a dozen times in my career, and it can happen to you. All right. So what is a backup offer? What does it do for you? Anybody wanna, first off, anybody on here besides me actually done a backup offer? Tracy, you've done one? Just one. Okay, did it become the primary by any chance?
No.
No? Okay, that's all right. Anybody else? All right. So, Tracy, maybe you want to tell us, describe to everybody what is a backup offer and what is not a backup offer. You start with what is.
Oh, okay. What is when the agents have said that they have received offers, but they are willing to take backup offers, and you submit your offer in the scenario or situation that something falls through with one of the primary offer that they have in place. So they'll go to your offer next if for some reason things fall through and don't work out with that primary offer. So it's,
okay.
And it's a specific form that you have to include as well to indicate that it is a backup offer.
Okay, well said. So a backup offer is a fully executed, fully negotiated, fully signed offer on the property with one additional provision. And it's a one little contingency that says none of this becomes effective until your primary offer falls through, in which case then the backup offer is triggered and we are off to the races. Okay. So I am going to launch into my slides. You know what? I'm going to share a different screen. Hang on, folks. Let's go with what are y'all looking at right now?
The Century 21 backup offer.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I was in the right screen. All right, the backup offer. When a buyer is interested in purchasing a home that already has a current contract, the backup offer can be submitted as a backup in case the first offer falls through. So why do you want to submit a backup offer? The National Association of Real Estate says that 74% of all contracts written actually make it to the closing table. So what does that mean? 26% are actually going to fall through at some point. Okay. I love this. Sorry, folks. This house is under contract. Anybody who loved John Candy knows that where that's coming from. So what that means is there's a better than a 1 in 4 chance that the backup offer will come into play. So if I could tell you that you've got a 1/4 chance of getting your client into the contract in this market when it's such a strong seller's market, doesn't that differentiate you from the rest of the back? You have the ability to say, I have a practice that in this market works 26% of the time. How does that not make you more valuable than another agent who either doesn't know how to do a backup offer or doesn't do it effectively? Okay. When you do a backup offer, if you are of the mindset, Guggen, this is for you. If you are of the mindset that you only do the buyer's brokerage agreement at the time that you actually write the offer, then guess what? When you do a backup offer, you're securing that buyer's brokerage agreement and you're locking that client down for a period of time. All right. When you do a backup offer, you earn extra credibility with your buyer client. It shows your dedication, your commitment, your level of service that you provide to your client is why you do a backup offer. Okay, helps the co-op listing agent. Somebody explain to me, how could a backup offer help the co-op agent? Anybody?
It means they
Go ahead.
means they don't have to put it back out to on the market for more offers to come in.
Yep. They don't have to relist it. They've already got it locked down. And I'm going to mute you, Tracy, now that you've said everything. I appreciate it. You're absolutely right. Not only does it make it easier for them, it helps them to negotiate with the co-op. Okay, so let's say, for example, they found the house, they fell in love with it. Before you could get it under contract, they went under contract with somebody else. Now they're in due diligence. You've got the secured backup position. What happens now with a secured, no kidding, backup signed? What happens when the seller for contract number 1 comes back and they want $10,000 worth of repairs done in the amendment to address concerns for the due diligence period? What do you think that the listing agent's position is when they've got a fully executed, full price backup offer from somebody like yourself? Gives them some negotiating power, doesn't it? So you can actually help them to negotiate from a stronger position by saying, look, the seller's not going to agree to $10,000 worth of repairs. We've got a full price backup offer from another agent. And if you've kind of slid in and said, well, we don't anticipate any major problems with the inspection. Maybe you've expressed to them that your buyer is restrained with regards to repairs, that they've got a reasonable expectation. That gives you the ability to negotiate from a stronger position. I will tell you that has helped me and benefited me in more occasions than I've thought. In fact, so much so that sometimes a fully signed backup offer becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. When you have a backup offer position, the listing agent is more inclined to say no to the primary buyer's agent, and oftentimes the backup becomes the primary, more so than it would be if there was no formal backup. Okay. It absolutely can make a huge, huge difference. Okay. Okay. So, so not only does it help the listing agent, it's the right thing to do for your client. You are demonstrating that you are going the full breadth of your experience and your skill set to be able to help them out. All right. So that's why we submit the backup offer. Let's talk about what is a backup offer. When is it used? It's used in the multiple offer situation. After losing in a multiple offer situation, it's when submitting an offer late or after the seller has already accepted another offer. Backup offer puts your buyer first in line. It basically gives them first right of refusal upon the termination of the primary offer. And again, a backup offer is a fully executed, signed by all parties, purchase and sale agreement with all of the associated exhibits, including the GAR F604 backup contingency exhibit. Contingency exhibit. We're going to take a closer look at that here in just a minute. All right. What is not a backup offer? A backup offer is not a verbal, we'll call you if it falls through. It is also not a top drawer offer. And this is my pet peeve is most buyer agents or listing agents think that it's something that, okay, I'm going to take your offer, I'm going to put it in the top drawer of my desk right here. And when the proverbial doo-doo hits the fan, that's when I'll call you and we'll go with you as the backup. Well, that's not good enough and you shouldn't be happy with that. Because unless it's signed and unless it's fully executed, there's no guarantee. Getting the backup contingency, getting the offer signed gives you that guarantee. All right, so what are the advantages of a backup? Your buyer client, they can continue shopping for their new home, but they have the security that they have this one that may still be in play. Okay. When done properly, for the backup, there is no earnest money due until the backup offer becomes the primary. There's no due diligence period or inspections. None of that starts until after the backup becomes the primary. Okay. And then again, we're just reinforcing this. The backup gives the listing agent the ability to negotiate from a stronger position by saying the seller is not going to be inclined to do a long list of repairs. We have a strong backup offer already in place. All right. When you do the actual offer, what I have found to be the most advantageous is you make a couple of simple, quick changes. Whatever your closing date was before on your original offer, you could just change that and you just do the strike through and you say 30 days after the binding agreement date. Okay. Doesn't do any good to put a date in here per se, because what happens if your backup offer doesn't come into play and become effective until the 20th of February in this case? Sorry, this is a dated example, but so you just simply put in here 30 days after the binding. The earnest money is as long as you put in 3 days after the binding agreement date. 10 days of due diligence, all of that starts after the binding agreement date. Well, guess what? The backup offer doesn't really have a binding agreement date. It's an agreement, but it doesn't have the binding agreement date entered into it per se. Okay. Any questions on that so far? This is what the backup agreement contingency exhibit looks like. It's the F806. And it simply says buyer and seller not acknowledge that this agreement is a backup to the primary agreement, which may be amended from time to time. And there's information here which you will not know when you initially submit this. This will be up to the listing agent to fill these two fields in. That this is a backup offer with and has no right to purchase unless the primary agreement is terminated and the seller gives notice to the buyer of the same. Okay, so this actually outlines what the procedures and the process are, particularly paragraph 5 that says in the event the primary agreement is terminated, seller shall deliver notice to the same to the buyer, and that this agreement shall become the primary is no longer subject to the contingency exhibit. Okay, very, very simple. Paragraph 6 asks for a date by which this becomes essentially a null contingency. So a lot of times I get asked this question, well, what date do I use? Good question. And what you kind of have to do is look at it and go, okay, well, I want this basically to be effective probably until the primary offer closes, right? That gives you the maximum flexibility in this. So you might need to talk to the listing agent and say, hey, when does your current primary offer close? Or you could just look at it and go, okay, well, they went under contract yesterday. It's probably going to be about 30 days. So I'm going to set my suspense about 30 days out. Okay. Any questions on the backup contingency exhibit? All right. What is the trigger for when the backup comes into play? You, unfortunately, because not a whole lot of agents are very familiar with this document, you might have to instruct the listing agent if and when the primary falls through, then provide the GAR notice indicating that the primary has fallen through and the backup is now the primary. The binding agreement date starts upon this notice, and the clock starts on all of the contingencies, such as earnest money being due, due diligence, finance, appraisal contingency, closing date. All of those things are started when this notice takes place. Okay, and this is what the notices look like. You could use either one of two. This generic notice document, which is simply stating, this is a notice given on the seller giving notice on this particular date that the primary has fallen through and the contingency comes into play. You could also do this binding agreement date notification, which is saying today is the day you become the primary and your binding agreement date is the 9th of May. Okay. And then the process after when the previously signed offer plus the GAR notice constituted a complete offer package, you turn everything into the help desk. The lender, closing attorney, the normal process comes into play at this point, and you've been beginning working the contract as a normal transaction after you become the primary. Okay. Now then, what happens if you don't become the primary? If your buyer has decided to submit a backup, has submitted a backup and it goes a different way and they end up not needing the backup, then you would want to keep it in place while you're submitting and negotiating the new offer. But when the new offer goes binding, immediately terminate that backup using the GAR notice to withdraw the offer. Okay, so you can continue shopping, client can continue the process. Just know that whenever a backup is either executed or you go under contract with a new offer, you need to close the loop on that backup that you had done and terminate the backup. All right. Useful tool. Think you could employ this one? Strongly recommend it. Whether it's on your listing, when you have a listing, or whether it's you have a buyer that you have submitted or missed an opportunity, it's a great, great tool. on both ends of the transaction. And I strongly encourage all of you to utilize the backup offer as much as humanly possible. All right. We got done a little bit early. What questions do you have, everyone?
Jay, I have a question about the earnest money. I get confused as to when it's due on the backup offer. Because I thought it was due at the time that the backup offer was signed, because it is considered binding, right? If the seller signs it.
It is considered binding. Well, it depends on how you handle it. If you do the binding, so there's a number of different ways to do this. I would say the earnest money is not due. You can do the fully executed and leave the binding agreement date blank, in which case the earnest money is not due. If you've put in there 3 days after binding agreement date, then you can just wait until you have the binding agreement date based off of the backup becoming binding at that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
You do not have to do earnest money for a backup offer just simply because it's backup. You only have to do the earnest money when the backup becomes the primary. Okay. All right, everybody. Yes, go ahead, Athena.
I've come into a situation more than once where I asked the listing agent if they'd be open to a backup offer and they said no. So what would be a reason why they would say no? Would it be just that they have one already, or they don't understand the value, or?
Both. Potentially,
Okay.
they already have one that is a possibility. Two, unfortunately, ignorance is probably the biggest reason why. There are some that may be out there that just simply don't know, don't understand, haven't been educated and taught what you guys are being taught. And the other thing is it makes it more onerous upon them as an agent and as a listing agent to a lot of us have been in this position where you've just gone listing, you've gotten Claire, how many offers did you get on your listing recently?
11.
11. Okay, so you've just finished dealing with 11 to narrow down to 1. And a lot of agents are intellectually or professionally lazy. They're like, okay, check that one done. Don't need to have a backup. Don't need to work anymore. Let's see how things go. Let's wait and see what happens on the due diligence with this one. And then they'll turn, if the crap hits the fan, that's when they'll go and start working on the backups. Unfortunately, that's all. That's why. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a great Monday. And we'll see you all on Thursday. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.